In other areas of the world, this is called the Nissan Patrol, but here in North America, it's the Armada. It's the new generation 2026, and this is the Pro-4X. We're gonna go through all of the changes that make this, hopefully, an off-road worthy 3-row SUV. Nissan's finally wanting to compete with the American manufacturers. Let's go for a drive. The V8's gone. You guys probably know that by now, but the Armada's following the footsteps of course, Ford with the EcoBoost and the Expedition. This also has a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6. Gone is the 5.6 liter naturally aspirated V8. Pretty much the standard now in a big 3-row body on frame SUV like this. So now it makes 25 more horsepower and 103 more pound-feet of torque. Of course, when you get on the throttle, it's not instantaneous torque. It's really good though. These turbos spool up quick, and I'll get on the gas in a second here, but it's pretty good. You don't get the sound. That's one big miss, but I feel like that's a very vocal minority who, in a truck like this, in a large SUV, are really going to miss the sound. This is not a sports car. So 425 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque. It's got good torque, it's got good response. The 9-speed transmission here is smooth. It's got 2 extra gears versus the previous generation. The reason why my face wasn't blown away by 516 pound-feet of torque like it was in the Expedition is because the Armada weighs 6,100 pounds. That's a few hundred pounds more than the Expedition. Somehow, that might have to do with this chunky steering wheel. And you might be thinking, hey, Marcus, the QX80 makes 25 more horsepower but uses the same engine. What gives? Well, this one's tuned just on a lower octane 87 fuel, whereas the QX80 requires 91 octane. So it's just a tuning difference. And torque response is good. What actually ends up happening now that we don't have the V8 is it just keeps the revs lower, and it just uses that torque from the turbo spooling up. It's not the best fuel economy here, but it still does okay. Let's go over some of the changes that the Pro-4X makes. Load leveling air suspension, adaptive air suspension. You also get the suspension setup on the Platinum Reserve. However, it's tuned for off-roading here, but nonetheless, it can be lowered. Entry to exit level, it gets very low. It almost looks like the new Armada Nismo, which is new for the 2026 model year. Either way, that's 2 inches lower than your standard ride height that we're at right now. And then in off-road mode, it'll raise 2.1 inches from the standard ride height. Key is though, you guys, there's a button here on the dash that says Ride Height Auto. Even if you undo that, it will just keep the vehicle at the standard ride height regardless. So you're probably asking, how do I get up to that raised ride height? You can't do it manually. So that's, you know, if an Acura MDX can do it, I'm pretty sure the Armada can do it, and it should be able to do it. The only way to get to that off-road ride height is to go into 4 low. Of course, at speed, it will lower a little bit better aerodynamics, but you guys get the idea. It will load level too, so regardless of the passengers, it'll keep the same ride height. It rides pretty well. I mean, it's a massive SUV, body on frame SUV. A lot of the bumps come in as shudders through the chassis. You feel a lot of it. This feels closer to the Yukon in ride quality than it does the Expedition. The Expedition kind of like wafts around the road a little bit. The dampers don't seem to be doing as much work as quickly as they do here in the Armada and in the Yukon. But it's pretty good. It's comfortable, it's isolated, it's quiet for the most part. I mean, it's a stark contrast getting out of the Expedition last week and into the Armada. They've dialed in the electric power steering for this generation versus the hydraulic power steering before. They've quickened the steering ratio, and that's what you notice. This has a much quicker steering rack than the Expedition. It's just a lot looser in the Expedition. Here, it's actually a little bit more involved. It's better to drive on the road, to change directions, a little bit quicker to change directions, and best of all, we have real paddle shifters here, not just buttons on the dash, but it drives great. A little bit of pitch, roll, dive, but the air suspension's doing an awesome job keeping it level. Heavy steering too, it definitely gets heavier. It feels like a little bit of the assist is coming out, and then at lower speeds, it lightens up a little bit. I cannot be the only one who thinks the new Armada's design looks a little bit like a Chevy Tahoe. So they've redesigned the front end. It's got the LED kind of light bars. Same with the rear end, LED light bar across the back. But it does get a few additional things. The grille's different, you guys can see here. Gloss black grille with a little bit of a different design, but come on, this is undeniably it looks very American. I'll leave it at that. You guys can hit me in the comments. Let me know what you think. It looks good. I just think Nissan could have done maybe a little bit more distinct design, made this stand out as their own a little bit more. Great looking SUV nonetheless. Just like the the Honda Passport. These are also not real vents. Looks mean though. So the Pro-4X, aside from the suspension, gets a few off-road things that make it, hopefully, as we'll find out in a second, off-road worthy. First are these 20-inch wheels and off-road all-terrain tires, knobby tires on here. The second is a completely different front bumper. So it's not just the grille and everything down here, better approach angle, and if you look closely, lava red tow hooks under there as well. It's got some steel skid plates. Notably though, this section right here is just plastic. Of course, the most crucial things to protect are further under there, the gas tank, the oil pan, but here, I mean, I guess the license plate is going to be the first to go anyways, so that's not a big deal. Pro-4X gets the LED fog lights, and then coming around the side here, a little bit of plastic kind of cladding. It's sat here in its highest setting, which again is only activated through forward low. We got some vents on the side here. Are these real? It looks like it. I think there's actually something back there. Yeah, all right, that's a start. Love this dark blue color. I'll put the name down here. I mean, my memory's terrible when it comes to color names. There are so many to remember. Pro-4X also gets the lava red accents over here. That's pretty cool. A big spoiler. It's just chunky. It's very tall. Very tall. I am so glad. It pretty much has no chrome on it. It has this little bit of kind of dark chrome down here, and then of course a bunch of black on the pillars. So it looks a little bit more streamlined as you come to the back. This can tow up to 8,500 pounds, which is just a little bit more than a four-wheel drive GMC Yukon, and about 1,000 pounds less, 1,100 pounds less than the Ford Expedition. So of course, these come standard four-wheel drive, that's a given. They all have 2-speed transfer cases, so 4 high, 4 low for off-roading. The Pro-4X, however, gets an electronically locking differential under there. So we'll find out how that works in a second. It's got a full-size spare. If you look closely, you can see that. And all Armadas, perhaps this contributes to how well it drives on the road, get full independent suspension, obviously in the rear, and it's double wishbone all around. That's huge. Quite a bit of room back here. Now, it's a lot bigger than something like a Lexus GX or a Toyota Land Cruiser. I think that much is obvious, but when you compare this to both the Yukon and the Expedition, this has about 3 cubic feet less space than the Expedition behind this third row, and about 5 less than the Yukon. So take that into consideration. The Americans, obviously, always the biggest. They have to be. That would be a backwards world if they weren't. Back here though, what's really cool is you can adjust your air suspension with these buttons, and then we'll find out how easily these go down. One button press, and those will lower slowly, but they go down. And then 2 more buttons here, boom. And it's cool, you do have that pass through in the second row, which is handy, but everything folds flat. Yeah, there's quite a bit of room in the third row, not quite as much as in the Expedition, and the second row is just massive. You are able to spec this for an extra fee with the captain's chairs in the second row. Okay, so these door cards great. They're simple, materials are good, and you get some red accents throughout the interior. But I felt like even the Honda Passport did a better job at storage in the door card. So you've just got one cup holder, a little section. It's not the most innovative in that sense. The interior is awesome. It doesn't feel quite as big in here as the Expedition or the Yukon. I'm not sure why that is, but you've got a ton of space. The Pro-4X obviously gets the red accents on the seats. You get leather inserts in the seats here. Why don't we start with the trail cam? So we've got this up here. It's a 360 cam. This is the same in the Platinum, but here it's just a little bit more useful, of course, because if you're going off-roading, where's our hood view? There it is. So we can effectively kind of see past the hood, I guess. If we drove forward, it would basically map what's underneath the car. I'll show you guys that in a second. But high res, really good quality stuff, and it's got a hard button here to get to the cameras and to switch through them. Hard buttons down here. Now, the gloss black, get rid of it. I don't think it's great, and the, you know, choosing your gear, park, reverse, neutral, drive with buttons, not the greatest, but your drive mode selector here, that's super easy. You've got a ton of off-road modes, hill descent control, trailer brake controller, all that good stuff. And then your four-wheel drive, you can control here, auto, 4 high, 4 low. You can lock your rear diff, which we'll do in a second. That's it. Like I mentioned, I don't have a manual control for my ride height. Like right now, it's just going down. Okay, cool. But everything else here is just, it's easy to use. There's these buttons on the steering wheel, and if I hit this button, I can control, without touching the screen, let's say the camera here, which is pretty cool, and then you can go through. However, if you're in Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, obviously wireless, that comes standard. If you're in that, and you start controlling like Google Maps or something within there, you can't just get back to the bottom home screen here, like right here. You can't do that. What you would have to do is click this button to then control this screen again, move it a couple times, and then go back, and then there. Now it goes back to the home row, I guess you could say. Things are pretty easy. The system here is Google-based, so it's got Google Maps built in, Google Assistant, Play Store, all that stuff. It's got like an interior dash cam to spy on you, I guess, if you want to interpret it that way. Most of the time, you never have to bring up your climate on the center screen here. Let me just show you something, okay? If you have all these options, you need to be able to control it easy, especially getting to those settings that you might change often. And one of those settings would be the display and the way you see things. So right now I've got Google Maps in the center. That's awesome. It's taking up a ton of space right here. But if I want to change the gauge cluster layout, it is 18 clicks or button presses away to go from here, change the display, and then come back to view my map here. It's 18 button presses. I don't need to say anything more. I'll put up the clip right now demonstrating what that looks like, but it's got the moonroof, it's got great materials, it's super comfy in here, the seats are great. You've got this storage down here, which is a little bit different than what the Expedition does, but you know, useful nonetheless. The cup holders up here aren't the biggest, but there are a lot of them. Center console's not quite as big as the Expedition. Like I said, it's not as smart in terms of storage, but I mean, it is kind of crazy to say, but this feels like it's encroaching on the Infiniti model lineup. This feels like a luxury SUV in here. Maybe that's just 2025, 2026 model vehicles if you're paying this much money, and we'll get to price in a second, but it feels like a luxury vehicle in here. I want to go off-roading, so let's go do that. Nothing really crazy today as far as off-roading goes, but the takeaway really here is, yes, this costs $97,000 Canadian after destination, or $75,000 USD, but it has really everything I would want out of a comfortable, massive 3-row SUV that can go off-road. There isn't anything, I'm just gonna put the mirrors in really quickly, it isn't as narrow as the GX550 either, but none of these 3 rows are. And that's the point. This does not have a locking front differential Neither does the Yukon, and neither does the Expedition. These are vehicles that are in a segment that their main focus is family hauling, and off-roading is second. That's what I'm feeling here, but at the same time, it's not really missing anything here as far as off-roading goes. Yeah, it's a great place to be at the same time, nice and quiet. So, only thing that concerns me are those plastic running boards. Not the greatest. Let's go into 4 low. It's gonna raise up. I think we need all the ride height we can get. And then we'll just crawl up this little section here. Yeah, these corner cams with the wheels are super handy. It's struggling a little bit. I think we're on 2 wheels right now. All right, neither of the cameras caught the action, but as you can see, the Armada is in the exact same spot I put the GX550 a couple months ago, and this one's on 3 wheels. Just teetering a little bit. Traction control did its best to go up. Center differential is locked, obviously. I did not lock the rear for this, but we're in 4 low. So obviously this does not have what the GX550 Overtrail has, which are those really trick electronically disconnecting sway bars. So that allows for a little bit more articulation than you would have here. Of course, this is a longer wheelbase too, so not really as ideal for rock crawling, but it's way more capable than I would have expected. To me, the Armada has always been just a massive family hauler, comparable to the Tahoe, and it still is, but with all these manufacturers coming out with off-road variants of their huge 3-row SUVs, I think it was really smart for Nissan to do this. I think they've struck a great balance between off-road capability and borderline luxury. Really good street manners, a V6 that makes a ton of power, and a vehicle you won't be afraid to take off-road. So thanks guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.